Let me tell you something most people never hear in their lifetime. Awareness is power. I mean real power. The kind of power that doesn't come from titles or money or success, but from mastering your own mind. Most people are walking through life asleep. They're stuck in loops, running on autopilot, and they don't even know it. They're reacting instead of choosing. They're living in emotional cages built by thoughts they never chose in the first place. And until you wake up, until you become aware of what's actually happening inside your own head, you're not running your life. Your thoughts are. Every single day there's a silent war happening in your mind. And the enemy is not out there. It's the voice in your head that says, you're not enough. You always fail. You'll never change. That voice isn't the truth. But if you don't catch it, if you don't SEE it, you start to believe it. And once you believe it, it becomes your reality. Not because it's real, because you gave it power. And you didn't even know you were doing it. The first step in destroying negative thoughts isn't about yelling affirmations or pretending everything's fine. It's about becoming aware. Slowing down enough to notice what's really going on inside. You've got to stop reacting and start observing. You've got to learn to become the watcher of your own mind. The moment you do that, everything starts to shift. Because once you see the pattern, you can break the pattern. You wake up in the morning and feel heavy. You don't even know why. That's the moment right there that you take control. You ask yourself, what am I thinking? What am I believing right now that's making me feel this way? And when you find it, when you catch that thought, you take its power away, you shine a light on it, you expose the lie, and you realize, wait a second, I've felt this way before. This is just an old script. This is not who I am. You can't change what you don't confront, and you can't confront what you're not aware of. The mind is tricky. It will disguise fear as logic. It will call self-doubt humility. It will convince you that you're just being realistic, when really you're sabotaging your future. But when you become aware, truly aware, you start to notice the patterns, the way you speak to yourself, the way you back down when it's time to step up, the way you shrink when the world is asking you to rise. And here's the truth. Most people aren't living their lives. They're living their patterns. They're living their pain. They're living the conclusions they made about themselves when they were 10 years old. And they never stopped to question any of it. But the moment you do, the moment you become aware, you're no longer a puppet. You become the director. You start writing the script instead of acting out someone else's. Awareness is the beginning of freedom. It's the spark that lights the fire. It's the point where you stop being a victim of circumstance and start being the architect of your destiny. But it takes courage, because awareness means taking full responsibility. No more blaming, no more excuses. You stop saying, this is just how I am, and start asking, is this who I choose to be? The mind loves comfort. It loves the familiar, even if the familiar is destroying you. But once you become aware, you break that trance. You see how you talk yourself out of opportunities. You notice how you expect things to go wrong. You catch the sarcasm in your self-talk, the subtle ways you insult your own potential. And once you SE it, you can challenge it. You can stand up and say, no more. Awareness isn't passive. It's not some spiritual concept you just meditate on and forget. It's active. It's brutal. It's honest. It means holding up a mirror and facing the truth. Not the truth about the world, the truth about you. And that's where the power begins. Because when you know your enemy, you can defeat it. And when the enemy is internal, awareness is your greatest weapon. When you build awareness, you create space between stimulus and response. That space is where your power lies. That's the moment you get to choose a different thought, a different belief, a different action. And the more you exercise that power, the stronger you become, the weaker those old thoughts get. You start catching them sooner. You start laughing at them. You start realizing that voice in my head, that's not me. That's just noise. And I choose not to listen. Awareness makes you dangerous in the best way, because now you're no longer reacting, you're creating. You're no longer drifting, you're driving. You're no longer being controlled by invisible forces. You're in control. You've stepped into the arena of life with your eyes open, your head high, and your mind sharp. You're no longer the person you used to be, because now you've taken the first step toward becoming the person you were meant to be. But let's get one thing straight. You are not your thoughts. Read that again. Let it sink in. You are not the noise in your head. You are not the voice that tells you you're a failure, that you're too late, too broken, too weak to make a change. That voice, it's just a product of conditioning, of experiences, of trauma, of fear. It's not truth. It's not you. But most people never learn to separate the two. They hear a thought and they accept it as fact. No filter, no challenge. And that's exactly how people get stuck. That's how lives get hijacked. From the moment we're born, we start collecting input from our parents, our environment, the media, our peers. That input turns into internal dialogue. Over time, it becomes habitual. And eventually, we start believing the thoughts we repeat to ourselves, even if they're lies, even if they're poison. That's how someone with massive potential can go through life never tapping into it. Because their thoughts told them they weren't worthy, and they believed it. They fused with it. They made it their identity. But here's the breakthrough. You are the thinker of your thoughts, not the thought itself. There's a massive difference. You are the awareness behind the thought. You are the observer. And the moment you realize that, the game changes. That internal voice might be screaming doubts, fears, judgments, but if you can step back and notice it without merging with it, you take away its power, you create space. Space gives you freedom, and in that freedom, you can choose something better. We've all had thoughts that come out of nowhere. You're walking down the street and suddenly your mind says something dark, irrational, or just plain ridiculous. That doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean something's wrong with you. That's what the brain does. It thinks constantly. It's a machine. It throws out ideas, possibilities, worst case scenarios. And if you're not trained to manage it, you'll start reacting to every single one. You'll start believing you are those thoughts. But you're not. You never were. Think about it. If you were your thoughts, you'd be changing identities every few seconds. You'd be angry, calm, sad, excited, ashamed, confident, all within a span of 5 minutes. But deep down, there's a YOU that's unchanging, a deeper presence. That's who you are, not the surface level chatter, not the mental noise. That's just static. You gotta understand, your mind is wired for survival, not success. It's designed to detect danger, avoid risk, and keep you safe. That's its job. So it's gonna lean toward fear. It's gonna generate caution. It's going to assume the worst sometimes. But just because it says something doesn't mean it's true. You have to become the gatekeeper. You have to decide which thoughts get to stay and which ones get thrown out. That's where your power is. People think confidence means never having negative thoughts. That's not true. Confidence means you don't let those thoughts run the show. They still come. You just don't identify with them. You acknowledge them, but you don't obey them. You say, okay, I hear you. And then you move forward anyway. That's mastery. That's leadership. That's what separates people who grow from people who stay stuck. Every belief you hold about yourself was once just a thought, and that thought got repeated over and over until it became familiar, and the brain loves familiarity. So it locked it in. Now that belief is running your life, and most of the time, you don't even know where it came from. That's why it's so important to challenge your thoughts. Interrogate them. Ask her, who told me this? Where did this come from? Is it even true? Because the minute you start questioning the thought, you step outside of it. You loosen its grip. You start to reclaim your identity. And let me be clear, this isn't about pretending negative thoughts don't exist. It's about refusing to let them define you. It's about understanding that thoughts are like clouds. They pass. They're not solid. They're not permanent. But if you grab onto them and hold them close, you make them real. You create suffering. You lock yourself in a mental cage and throw away the key. But that key has always been in your hand. The moment you recognize, wait, I'm not this thought, you unlock the door. You've had thoughts in the past that you no longer believe. Remember that. There was a time you believed something about yourself, about life, about what was possible, and you outgrew it. That's proof that thoughts evolve. That's proof that you can change. But it doesn't happen by accident. It happens by awareness, by intention, by refusing to let every mental whisper turn into your life story. This is why presence is so powerful. When you're fully present, your thoughts lose their grip. You're not stuck in the past. You're not projecting into the future. You're right here, fully engaged, fully alive. That's when you remember who you really are. Not the mind, but the consciousness behind it, the stillness, the power, the choice. When you find yourself stuck in a storm of negative thoughts, those loops that keep replaying old failures, worst case scenarios, self-doubt, fear, shame, you can't just sit back and wait for it to pass. You've got to intervene right now, not later, not after one more spiral. You've got to break the pattern immediately, because the longer you let a negative thought play on repeat, the deeper it carves into your nervous system. The more it owns you, the more it convinces you that what you're feeling is the truth. And if you don't interrupt that loop, it becomes who you are. Every mental pattern is like a groove in the brain. The more you walk it, the easier it is to fall into it. That's why it's so easy to slip into frustration or anxiety or helplessness. It's familiar, it's automatic, You don't even have to think, it just happens. But here's the key: patterns can be rewired, they can be broken. And when you break the pattern, you interrupt the identity that's been holding you hostage. You start to reclaim your power in real time, and you don't need hours of meditation to do it. You don't need to journal for 3 days or talk it through for weeks. You need a shock to the system, a radical shift, because negative thought loops live in certainty. They thrive in routine. They want predictability. So the moment you do something unexpected, something bold, something physical, something loud, you disrupt the cycle. You snap yourself out of the trance. It starts with physiology. Motion is emotion. You want to change your state, change your body. Get up, move, shake your shoulders, jump, clap your hands, yell if you have to. Interrupt the flow of what your nervous system expects. The body and mind are connected. You shift one, you shift the other. When you sit slouched, breathing shallow, your brain reads that as low energy, low mood, low worth. You're confirming the negative thought loop with your posture. But when you stand tall, breathe deeply, move your body with force, you send a new signal, a powerful signal, a signal that says, I'm in charge now. Words are just as important. Most people are walking around speaking their limitations out loud. I can't do this. I always mess this up. I'm just not good with pressure. And every time you say it, you reinforce the pattern. You give it roots. You make it stronger. But you can flip the script instantly. You can speak new commands to your brain. I've got this. Even when you don't believe it yet, you can say, this isn't who I am anymore. And your nervous system starts to adapt. Because language is power, language is leverage. What you say becomes what you feel, and what you feel drives what you do. And then there's focus. Where focus goes, energy flows. When you're caught in a negative loop, your mind is fixated on what's wrong, what's missing, what could go badly. That's where all your energy is going, into fear to failure, into doubt. But the moment you shift your focus, you shift your life. You ask better questions. What can I learn right now? What am I grateful for in this exact moment? What part of me is stronger because of this challenge? That's not positive thinking. That's mental dominance. That's choosing what you feed your mind instead of letting it feed you garbage. Sometimes it takes more. Sometimes you need to leave the room. Change your environment. Put on music that hits your soul. Take a cold shower, scream into a pillow, call a friend who challenges your excuses, do something, anything. That disrupts the rhythm of self-sabotage, because that's what it is, a rhythm. A familiar beat your nervous system plays when it's under stress, and you're the DJ. You can scratch the record, you can switch the track. You don't have to dance to the sad song every time. You've got to make interruption a habit, a lifestyle. Because those moments when you catch yourself spiraling, those are the crossroads. You either keep going down that road of frustration, overwhelm, fear, or you slam on the brakes and flip the script. Every time you do that, you get stronger. You build a new pattern, a new groove, and soon that becomes the default. Soon your brain starts to expect strength instead of panic, calm instead of chaos, power instead of helplessness. The people who win in life aren't the ones who never have negative thoughts. They're the ones who don't stay there. They don't pitch a tent in the middle of pain. They break the pattern fast, relentlessly. They take charge of their internal world before it becomes their external reality. Because once a thought takes root in your mind, it starts to grow into behavior. And behavior becomes habit, and habit becomes identity. But it all starts with that first loop, that first thought, and your ability to step and interrupt it and say, no, not today, not anymore. That's where everything changes. That's where transformation begins. Not in the future, not someday, right now, in the moment where you decide to shatter the pattern before it becomes your prison. If you're gonna destroy negative thoughts and win the day, it's not enough to just interrupt the pattern. It's not enough to stop the spiral. You've got to replace it. You've got to install a new command, because your mind is like a computer. When you delete one program, you can't leave the space empty. If you do, the old code comes right back. It fills the void. So once you break the old pattern, you have to overwrite it. You've got to give your brain a new directive, a new command to follow, a new identity to embody. And it's got to be intentional, deliberate, repeated, because whether you realize it or not, your mind is running commands all day long. They're looping silently in the background, shaping your choices, your emotions, your standards. Things like, I'm not good under pressure. People always leave. I can't trust myself. These are not just thoughts. They're internal codes. They're mental software. And just like software, if you don't upgrade it, it keeps producing the same results, the same glitches, the same breakdowns. You don't need to just silence those commands. You need to rewrite them with precision and power. This starts with language. The words you speak to yourself, even silently, are everything. Most people use language that weakens them. They say things like, I'm tired, I'm overwhelmed, I'm just not motivated. And your brain listens. It listens and it obeys. It begins to form its entire reality around the words you choose. But here's what most don't understand. You don't speak what feel, you feel what you speak. So when you start to install new commands, your feelings start to change. Your energy starts to shift. Not because the world changed, because your internal programming did. Instead of saying, I'm stuck, you say, I'm in a transition. Instead of saying, I'm failing, you say, I'm learning. Instead of, I can't do this, you say, I'm training for this. These aren't affirmations in the cheesy, empty sense. These are commands. These are the lines of code you're choosing to run your mind. And the repetition of these lines is what turns them into belief. You don't believe something because it's true. You believe it because it's familiar. So if you want to believe something new, you've got to install it until it becomes the dominant narrative in your head. You've got to engage your body, your emotions, your focus. Speak the new command with certainty, not hesitation. When you say, I am powerful, you don't mumble it. You don't whisper it like a hope. You declare it like a fact, like a mission, like it's non-negotiable. Because your nervous system responds to certainty. If you hesitate, your brain says, you don't really mean it. But when you speak with strength, when you embody that command, your body begins to align with that message. Your posture shifts, your breathing deepens, your energy rises. Suddenly, you're not acting, you're becoming. Visualization takes it even further. Don't just speak the command. See it. When you say, I am focused, close your eyes and picture yourself laser focused on your work. When you say, I am confident, imagine walking into a room with your shoulders back, eyes forward, owning the moment. The brain doesn't know the difference between real and vividly imagined. So when you combine powerful language with vivid imagery, you install the new command at the emotional level. That's where true change happens, not just in your head, but in your heart, your body, your spirit. The key is consistency. You can't say it once and expect a transformation. Just like a new piece of software, your mind needs time to adapt. It needs to learn the new script. That's why you repeat it every day. You say it in the morning when you wake up, when your brain is most impressionable. You say it during the day when old patterns try to creep in. You say it at night, right before you sleep, so it sinks into your subconscious. Every time you say it, every time you feel it, every time you visualize it, you reinforce the code, you strengthen the command, and over time, something amazing happens. You stop trying to believe it, you just do. The old thoughts lose their grip. The doubts get quieter, the excuses don't fit anymore. Because your identity has changed. Your internal operating system has been upgraded. You're no longer running the same fear-based, self-sabotaging commands. You're running powerful, purposeful, high-performance code. And that code produces different results, different emotions, different actions, different standards. This is how you take control of your mind. This is how you win the inner war. Not by hoping the negativity will go away, but by replacing it with something stronger, something aligned, something that reflects who you really are, not the version shaped by pain, but the version shaped by purpose. That version is already inside you, but you've got to call it forward. You've got to command it over and over until it becomes automatic, until it becomes who you are. Because at the end of the day, the thoughts you repeat become your beliefs, and your beliefs become your life. Every single day, before the world hits you with its noise, you've got to hit yourself with power. Before the distractions come in, before the opinions, the chaos, the notifications, you have to prime your mind. You have to get ahead of your emotions, ahead of your state, ahead of your reactions. Because if you don't condition your mind, the world will do it for you. And the world isn't focused on making you powerful. It's focused on making you reactive. It's focused on pulling your attention, controlling your thoughts, hijacking your emotions. That's why you don't just wake up and hope for a good day. You create it. You prime for it. Priming your mind is not some optional ritual for when you have extra time. It's a daily discipline. It's how you start to build mental immunity. Just like your body needs food, water, movement, your mind needs strategy. It needs focus. It needs commands, conditioning, clarity. You don't just throw yourself into the fire and hope to stay calm. You train before the fire ever starts. You strengthen yourself every morning so that when pressure hits, you don't collapse. You rise, you lead. You make decisions from a place of center, not chaos. Priming starts with intention. Most people roll out of bed and immediately go into reaction mode. They check their phones, look at their emails, scroll social media, and their nervous system is already in fight or flight by the time they brush their teeth. That's not starting your day. That's surrendering your mind. That's letting your environment choose state before you've chosen it yourself. And if your state is off, your decisions are off, your energy is off, your outcomes are off. That's why you take command before anything else gets a vote. You start by owning your breathing. Your breath is the remote control of your emotions. It's the fastest way to shift your state. You breathe deep with intention, inhale power, exhale tension. You oxygenate your brain, wake up your nervous system, and take your focus out of past or the future and anchor it into now. Just a few minutes of breathing consciously tells your brain, I'm in control, I'm not surviving this day, I'm directing it. Then you move your body, because motion is emotion. You're not going to prime your mind from a slouched position with dead energy. You need to move. You need to get blood flowing, stretch, jump, bounce, push your physiology to life. When you move with strength, you feel strong. When you stand like a leader, you start to think like one. This isn't exercise, it's activation. You're waking up the body so the mind can follow. From there, you lock in your focus, because whatever you focus on, you feel. If you wake up thinking about what's wrong, what you don't have, what you're afraid of, your nervous system will create that reality. But if you focus on what's right, on what you're capable of, on what's possible today, you build momentum, you build certainty. You start to prime your brain to look for opportunities instead of problems, to feel gratitude instead of scarcity, to trust instead of fear. Gratitude is one of the most powerful ways to prime your emotional state, because you can't feel fear and gratitude at the same time. You can't feel stress and appreciation in the same breath. When you take a few moments every morning to feel, not just think about, but truly feel what you're grateful for, your entire nervous system shifts. Your mind expands, your heart opens. And you start seeing your life through a lens of abundance, not lack. And then you visualize, you don't just hope the day goes well, you see it going well. You picture the meetings, the workouts, the decisions, the challenges, and you see yourself crushing them. Not in some fantasy way, but with precision, with detail. You see yourself calm under pressure, focused in chaos, courageous in discomfort. You show your brain the movie before it plays out in real life. And when your brain sees it clearly, your body starts to believe it. Your emotions start to trust it, and that vision becomes your standard. Finally, you speak your commands, you say who you are, who you're becoming, what you expect of yourself. You don't whisper your identity, you declare it. You speak it with certainty, because your nervous system follows your voice. You remind yourself what you stand for, what you're here to do, what today means to you. You install the mindset before the challenges show up, because they will show up. And when they do, you'll be ready, not because you're lucky, but because you prime for it. This is how winners prepare. This is how leaders operate, not by chance, not by mood, but by ritual, by discipline, by deciding every single morning, this is who I am, this is how I show up, no matter what. And when you do this daily, when you condition your focus, your emotions, your energy, you become unstoppable. Not because life gets easier, because you get stronger. You get more certain, more intentional, more grounded in who you are and what you came here to do. And that doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you prime your mind daily with relentless focus and absolute commitment. You want to destroy negative thoughts. You want to win the day, own your life, step into your greatness. Then listen carefully, you cannot do it alone. You weren't built to walk this road by yourself. No matter how disciplined, how driven, how committed you are, your environment will shape you. Your environment is either reinforcing your power or draining it, feeding your fire or smothering it. So if you're serious about leveling up, you've got to surround yourself with power. You've got to curate your circle, control your input, and construct an ecosystem that pulls the best out of you, even on your worst days. Everything in your life is either an anchor or an engine. There's no neutral. The people you talk to, the content you consume, the energy around you, it's all affecting your state, your beliefs, your self-image. And here's what most people don't realize: negative thoughts don't always originate from you. A lot of time they're borrowed, adopted, absorbed. You heard it from someone. You saw it in someone. You felt it in the room. And if you keep living in an atmosphere that echoes fear, doubt, mediocrity, you start to internalize that as normal. You start to shrink to fit it. That's why you've got to be ruthless with your environment. You think about the people you spend the most time with. Are they speaking life into you or pulling you back into limitation? Are they challenging your growth or enabling your excuses? Because energy is contagious. Beliefs are contagious. Standards are contagious. Spend enough time with people who settle for less, and you'll start justifying less for yourself. But surround yourself with winners, people who push, people who stretch, people who live at a higher level. and something changes inside you, you begin to expect more from yourself. Not because they told you to, but because they live it, they embody it. It's not just about motivation, it's about modeling. You become what you observe. You become what you allow yourself to be around. If you're constantly hearing people complain, blame, gossip, make excuses, you might not join in at first, but eventually it wears you down. You adapt. You lower your standards to match the room. And that's not weakness, that's biology. That's how human beings survive in tribes. We mirror the environment so we don't get rejected by it. But survival isn't the goal anymore. Excellence is, growth is, leadership is, and that requires a new tribe, a new environment that rewards strength, not weakness. Progress, not comfort. You want to know how to build that environment? You start by raising your own standard first. Because the energy you attract is a reflection of the energy you embody. You want high-level people around you. Be a high-level person. Show up with discipline. Speak with vision. Operate with integrity. And watch how the right people begin to align with you. Watch how the wrong people begin to fall away. It's not magic. It's alignment. You become magnetic when you live in truth. When you stop lowering your vibe to make others comfortable and instead invite them to rise with you. And it's not just about people, it's about content. What are you feeding your mind every day? The news, drama, gossip. That stuff is poison. It might feel entertaining in the moment, but it weakens your spirit. It robs you of clarity, of focus, of drive. You've got to be intentional. Feed your mind with wisdom, with truth, with strategies that lift you, voices that challenge you, messages that awaken you. Read the books, listen to the audios, watch the videos that sharpen your edge. Not just when you feel down, but daily. Because just like your body needs fuel, your mind needs armor. There will be days when your inner fire flickers. That's when your environment matters most. That's when having a team, a coach, a friend, or even a community that reminds you of who you are, that's when it becomes life-changing. Sometimes you just need to hear one powerful question, one insight, one challenge to break out of a funk and get back into your lane. That's why you don't isolate. That's why you don't try to muscle through everything alone. You surround yourself with power so you can borrow it when you forget your own. You immerse yourself in strength so you can remember yours. And here's the truth, most people won't get this. They'll mock it. They'll say you've changed. They'll try to pull you back into the version of you they're comfortable with. And that's okay. That's part of the process. Growth will cost you some relationships. It will require you to walk away from the comfortable and step into the intentional. But every time you do, you create space. Space for better conversations, space for deeper connections, space for people who see you, believe in you, and won't let you play small, even when it's tempting. Because when you surround yourself with power, everything changes. Your confidence rises, your mindset sharpens, your vision expands. You start thinking bigger, acting bolder, living louder, not from ego, but from alignment. You're no longer fighting your environment. You're fueled by it. You're no longer dragging dead weight. You're flying with those who elevate. And that kind of environment, that kind of circle isn't just helpful, it's non-negotiable. It's the difference between surviving your days and winning them, between being consumed by negative thoughts and being surrounded by voices that cancel them out before they ever take root, between staying stuck in who you were and stepping fully into who you're meant to become. And momentum is everything. If you want to destroy negative thoughts, take control of your emotions, and win the day, you've got to start stacking wins early. Before doubt even has a chance to whisper in your ear. Before the world throws distractions and problems your way, you've got to create certainty. That certainty is built through action, through decisions, through small victories that tell your brain, we're in charge. We're not waiting, we're attacking. Because when you start your day with a win, no matter how small, you shift your entire nervous system into a state of power. Most people wake up and drift. They roll out of bed, already late, already reacting. They snooze the alarm, check their phone, read the news, scroll social media, and wonder why they feel behind, overwhelmed, unfocused. They don't realize they've lost control before the day even started. They've let the world hijack their emotions. But when you wake up with intention, with a decision to create momentum, you change the game. You begin to prime your mind for strength, for clarity, for confidence. Stacking wins early is about creating forward motion. Your brain needs evidence. It needs proof that you're making progress, that you're following through, that you're building. When you take that first action, getting out of bed with energy, hydrating your body, moving with purpose, you send a message to yourself. I am in command. It doesn't have to be massive. It just has to be decisive, because motion creates emotion, and that first win sparks the next one. That's the power of momentum. It doesn't ask how you feel, it creates how you feel. You can't wait to feel confident to take action. That's not how it works. You take action, you get results, and those results build confidence. That's why the morning matters. That's why those first 30 to 60 minutes are sacred, because what you do during that time will echo throughout the rest of your day. You either begin your day on your heels, reacting to the world, or you begin on your toes, ready to strike, ready to build, ready to dominate. It could be something as simple as making your bed with intensity. It might be getting in a cold shower to jolt your system into alertness. It might be sitting in silence for 10 minutes, breathing, visualizing, declaring who you are and what you're going to do. It might be writing your goals. It might be knocking out a workout or finishing a task you've been avoiding. The specific action doesn't matter as much as the commitment to win early. Because when you begin with intention, when you start the day by keeping a promise to yourself, you begin reinforcing your identity as a winner. Winners don't need motivation, they create it. They manufacture momentum. They set the tone for their day and let that tone carry them through adversity, through distractions, through pressure. You might get thrown off later in the day. Life will happen, challenges will come. But if you stacked enough wins early, you're already rooted, you're already grounded, you're not playing catch up, you're leading. This process compounds. The more days you start with intentional wins, the stronger your mental foundation becomes. You start to build a streak. You start to develop a track record with yourself. And that's what most people are missing. Not ability, not intelligence, but evidence. They haven't proven to themselves consistently that they follow through, that they get up, that they execute. So they don't trust themselves. But every time you stack a win, every single time you're laying another brick in your foundation of self-trust. Negative thoughts lose power when you're in motion. When you're sitting still, overthinking, procrastinating, you become vulnerable. That's when the doubt creeps in. That's when the fear starts to sound logical. But when you're moving, when you're achieving, building, producing, you're too busy winning to listen to those voices. That's the secret. Movement is medicine. Forward motion is the antidote to anxiety. Execution destroys excuses. And here's what's beautiful: wins are contagious. One leads to another. You get out of bed with purpose, and now you want to fuel your body with something healthy. You hydrate, and now you feel sharper. You move your body and your mood lifts. You review your goals and your focus locks in. You send that email you were avoiding, and suddenly you're in a groove. These aren't random tasks. They're strategic victories, each one feeding the next, each one telling your brain, we're not just surviving today, we're dominating it. This is how high performers build their days. Not by luck, not by chance, but by engineering momentum from the moment they wake up. They don't need external motivation because they've trained themselves to look for wins and stack them early. And when you stack wins early, you become unstoppable, not because the day gets easier, but because you get stronger. You stop being at the mercy of circumstance and start becoming the architect of your outcomes. You carry the energy of progress into every interaction, every decision, every challenge. And that energy is what separates people who live on offense from people who live on defense. People who create their life from people who endure it. People who win the day from people who are owned by it. So here's what it all comes down, Tog. The war is not outside you, it's within you. The battle is in your thoughts, in your habits, in the way you condition your mind and body to respond to the world. You want to destroy negative thoughts. You want to win the day over and over again. Then you must become the commander of your state. You must choose awareness over autopilot. You must separate your identity from the noise in your head. You must learn to interrupt the old patterns the moment they rise, replace them with new commands that serve your future, and prime your mind like a warrior every single morning. You must protect your environment like your life depends on it, because it does. Surround yourself with power, with energy that lifts you, with voices that pull you into your higher self. And never underestimate the value of stacking wins early, because momentum is not random. It's built, it's designed. The more you execute on these principles, the more you reclaim your power. You start to shift from reacting to creating, from surviving to leading, from being owned by the day to owning the day. It's all possible, not in theory, in practice. But it requires you to step up over and over again until it's no longer effort. It's identity. Now go out there, destroy the negativity, build your momentum, and win your day like your life depends on it, because it does. Thank you for listening. Stay strong, stay focused, keep rising.